Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hey there, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Short Bus Debate Club. This is Brian Courtney. Today we are going to make things light as usual, because it's Wednesday.
Light Wednesdays. Levity Wednesdays.
Darren is across the table from me, shouting some shit about levity. So today we are going to talk about, and I was kind of unclear, so I'm just going to shout some shit out, and I think we're on the right track. But we're talking about movies that basically were a big fuck you to whoever was in charge. Revolution type movies. Yeah.
Or at least social change types of movies. But I don't have a problem with fuck you types of movies either. Because in my list,
Well,
I've got a few fuck you movies.
Those are social change movies, though. I mean,
I know those are social change with a fucking dotting of the I.
You know, I mean, and this is something that I think Americans as a whole, they just don't fucking understand, is that, you know, one man's terrorist is another's revolutionary. And they don't comprehend that. You know, some Cubans talk about Che, and they're like, yay Che, yay Che. They got the fucking mob out of here, shut down the casinos, fed the people. And then a lot of other Cubans were like, fuck you, we were with the mob and the casinos.
We're making a lot of money off these poor motherfuckers. We need to get you guys all back into indentured servitude.
So, you know, I think depending on who had the say, you know, terrorist or revolutionary. Personally, I think revolutionary. I would have liked to have gone to Cuba in the 50s, though, when the casinos were really bumping and things were happening the way they were. And I'm sorry, guys, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but
it's a little late for that.
But there was a movie, actually, and a sequel called Che. So that's a revolutionary movie. So it's not too much of a tangent. But
what was the thing about the going to the casinos in the night? Because I agree with you. I would have liked to have gone there too, because I would have liked to have seen what it was that triggered the motivation for. Because what happened between Castro and Che and when they created that groundswell was pretty fucking remarkable, you know. Little island, but it was crazy, and obviously there was quite a bit more social strife than I think those motherfuckers that ended up in Miami really understood.
Well, you can kind of understand why the mob wanted to kill him. Castro, not Che. Maybe they wanted to kill Che too. I don't know.
Well, he was the strategist. I mean, Castro was more the
figurehead.
Yeah,
I would give you that, but I don't think that they necessarily knew who the fuck Che was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the dynamics of those two people was beyond the comprehension of the people that they were coming up against too. I think that they were a little bit beyond them in terms of their strategic dispositions.
And so then, you know, all of this other shit, Cuban Missile Crisis and all of this horse shit, whatever, if it happened, didn't happen, you know, makes shit up to where they blow up JFK. You know, the mob was pissed at JFK too, and I don't even think he had anything to do with the fucking casinos in Cuba. But whatever. So we're talking about fuck you movies.
So what other
power to the people?
What other fuck you movies do you have in your?
So I kind of broke mine down into two different categories. I went with fiction and movies loosely based on fact, right?
Okay.
So loosely based on fact, I fucking love Braveheart. It's awesome. When he jams that deer antler into that guy's fucking throat at the beginning of the movie, it's badass. It's just a sign of good things to come from that movie.
A sign of good things to come.
So,
but he still had no shot. I mean, it sucked.
No, he did die at the end. Horribly.
No, he didn't just die. He had no fucking shot, dude. I mean, he couldn't get the nobles to fucking work with him at all. They fucking sold him out. He only had that one guy that was kind of with him, you know, and I don't know how much.
Well, he's the guy that ended up taking over Scotland.
Yeah.
I mean,
Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, and that really did happen. So what happened with Robert the Bruce's dad, you know, kind of fucking him over? I don't know whether or not that happened. I'm guessing that there are some sort of documents saying that happened.
Well, the narrative of the concept, because they would give out the titles and all that, the land and the shit, and they give them some here down there and some up there,
and grant prima nocte and shit like that.
Yeah, that's some fucked up shit. What do you, if you're gonna let people when they get married, if you're gonna make the fucking lord of the manor be allowed to impregnate. What did he say in it? He said the one thing about Scotland is there's too many Scots.
If we can't get them out,
we'll breed them out.
Right.
Fuck that shit. I mean, I'd have to fucking kill them too. You know, I wouldn't feel bad about that one single bit. Braveheart though, that's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
So another one loosely based on history, and strangely enough, Mel Gibson is in it, is The Patriot. And that one it's almost exactly fucking like Braveheart. Except there's cannonballs and guns in it
Did he direct that one too?
Instead of just edged weapons. Fuck, I don't know, dude. I have no idea. I didn't look at that stuff.
I could see Mel Gibson doing something like that.
I'm sure he probably had something to do with it.
I didn't actually see The Patriot. So what went on in The Patriot? What it was like leading up to the revolution or what?
Yeah, they were all, deciding whether or not they were going to tell England to fuck off and do the declaration and all of that stuff. And I can't remember which Carolina he was in. I think it was South Carolina. Which one's the one that has the palm tree on the flag? That is South Carolina, right? So he's in South Carolina. He cares too much about his kids, and he's fought in the French Indian War and all of these other wars. So he didn't want to fight, and he was doing everything in his power to not fight. Then his son, it was Heath Ledger, his son said, well, fuck you, I'm going to fight. And he had this big piece of land. It was a plantation, but he did not have slaves, at least according to the movie. Whether or not it happened in real life, another thing. But when war broke out, he was taking care of both the rebels and the king's army. Some asshole from the king's army came in and ended up shooting his son as a spy. And so that fucking sent him off the fucking rails, and he started fighting like a crazy man. And he had a nickname, the Ghost, and that's because nobody could see him, because he was fighting for what was probably maybe the third guerrilla type warfare here in the United States. But back then, I mean, when they fought, for the most part, they fucking lined up and faced each other and just started shooting, which is fucking full on retarded. Who was the tactician that came up with that brilliant thing?
Somebody should have read a little Sun Tzu or something like that.
Well, and I think it had to do with, back in the day where they had edged weapons, so they had to face each other. And then, but I don't know, because it still doesn't make sense, because now, you don't have edged weapons anymore, or you do, but they're for close quarter combat, right? So you're lining up and you're fucking 50 yards away from each other, and you're, sticking your ball in, and then a wad and some powder and another wad, or however the fuck you load one of those guns, I don't know. But and then each line ducks, so that there's some guys low and some guys high, and they just start shooting.
I just rewatched, and this is another one it's not based on reality per se, but it is based on a certain couple of things that happened in history. The Last Samurai again, and that's kind of.
I dig that movie too.
Yeah. But when they go at the end, well, even at the beginning when they first engage them, and they don't all those Japanese soldiers don't know how to they don't have the notion of like how to fight in the war. Period. They're afraid.
Most of those guys are farmers, so that kind of is the patriot too.
Oh,
right?
Okay, so it crosses over, but they still hadn't. I mean, it took them that entire winter while Tom Cruise's character is away hanging out with what the fuck was
I don't know.
I just what his name was, but
remember him always talking about cherry blossoms.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. It's the perfect cherry blossom. Yeah. Okay. So,
yeah.
But when they'd sit there and they'd fucking jam the ball down in and put the fucking gunpowder, and then they fucking bring up the fucking Wurlitzers and just, that you see what the qualitative changes.
That was that Gatling gun,
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and just didn't just kill him. I mean, it ripped him to fucking pieces.
And I would like to say that our sound effects in concert like that, fucking badass, dude.
We probably should have let somebody send us an email or something and say that instead of as we're tooting our own horn. I have a couple of good history ones too, though. Other than that, what's up?
So, with The Last Samurai, I like I said, I totally fucking dig that movie.
That was based on a French guy. There was a French military technician that was like Tom Cruise's character that went there during that time period and ended up staying with the samurais and kind of defected to them, if I understand correctly.
Really?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, well, so that's what I was going to say, though, is that a samurai without a leader is a Ronin and not a samurai, right?
Yeah.
Well, these guys were samurai because they were following the emperor.
And they kept saying.
But the emperor kept taking bad advice from this fucking asshole who was trying to build railroads and do whatever and
facilitate the treaties with the U.S. so they could make a bunch of money. Yeah.
Right. So that wasn't necessarily a fuck you to power. That was a fuck you to what?
That is a fuck you to power, though. This is why, right? Because they had a certain ethic, like cowboys, I mean, that's why they sort of crossed over in that concept, right? They would prefer to die than to be, they were almost being emasculated if they couldn't fill the function that they had filled for their whole life. So they were going to go, because they were not going to be Ronin. They were going to only be samurais, or they were going to fucking die.
Right. But that wasn't my point. My point was that the emperor was the true power.
Yeah.
And the other guy was just some asshole who was manipulating him. So the fuck you wasn't truly to the emperor who was the power.
It kind of was, though. It was a big enough fuck you to where, and who knows what the real history is.
Right.
But in that moment when Tom Cruise goes in with the sword and says, this is his sword, how did he die? Well, I'll tell you how he lived, When that moment happens, the emperor is still caught between two worlds, right? And when he turns to that guy and tells him, he realized that he had to kill this part of his past to remember how to revitalize it. So like the death of that samurai, him saying, if you're not going to let me be on this, fill this function for you anymore, then I'm, and by giving his life and by saying,
and that's why he said that the entire movie.
But that's a fuck you to power. That's a fuck you to the emperor. He forced him to get those people to fucking kill him, and then he finally realized what was important. And told that guy he can give up all of his fucking shit if he thinks he's disgraced fucking Japan.
Yeah, okay. I'll buy that, at least momentarily.
It's not objectively going to be concrete, but it definitely caused, like, how do you get somebody in power to change? I mean, and he did through his life, through his death, got that guy to change. And that's remarkable, to be perfectly honest with you, because not only did he changed in front of all the people that were standing in that room, and that's, and of course, like, it's fucking Hollywood. We don't really know how much of any of that was true. We know that fucking Japanese nationalism is at least as powerful as German nationalism or US nationalism, because they were, all of the things that developed out of that over the course of the next 40 years. Japanese did a lot of fucked up shit in the fucking Southeast Asia, in China, in fucking South Korea. I mean, and it was all in the name of that Japanese nationalism, so there was a type of pride and consciousness that connected to them.
Oh, there was a lot of pride. And that's why I still don't understand, like, and I'm not trying to cause a fucking race war here or anything, but, like, when I used to go to the casinos all the time, or you were still dealing and a lot of your dealer buddies would be around, like, some of them were Vietnamese and some of them were Chinese and whatever.
Yes.
And I was always like, well, how do you want to be referred? And they're like, just fucking call me Asian. And that always confused me, because a lot of the Hispanics don't want to be they don't want to be called Hispanic because Cuba fucked somebody, or Venezuela fucked somebody, or Colombia, or Mexico, whatever, right? Yeah. So that really confused me, because Japan and China have been at it for fucking hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean,
in 2016, when I went to China, one of the most, like, devastating lessons that I had. So we did this loop for about a week and a couple of days. We landed in Shanghai. We took a loop out to Wuxi. That was as far as we went. It was about 300 miles, I think, west. But we did it slowly because we're looking at sites.
It said a loop, like on a boat?
No, a loop, like we were on a bus. And
okay.
We're kind of swinging down. We get past this big body of water where these really tasty big fucking clams at, and we turn back at Wuxi and we go up to Nanking, which is what, like, has been on and off the capital of China because of where it's located. It has mountains on three sides. It's very defensible.
Nice fortress.
It's super, yeah.
So fortified.
During that time period, Nanking, when Japan invaded during World War II, Japan took a railroad up, and, like, all these soldiers fucking piled off, and they did things that were horrible. So fucking horrible that, like, when I was in Nanking, the way that they talked about it and the way that the people that were Chinese remembered it, like, if people think that there aren't, there are some scores that are not buried and they're not settled. I mean, they would take samurai swords and they would stick them up ladies' hooters that were pregnant and kill the fucking baby. Yes, this they would talk about, like, Annie started to kind of describe it, because she'd tell me when we're at the historical places, and then I was like, okay, I don't need to hear any more of that. We can talk about it later. Because
but that was only 1940s.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back, I mean, they've been fighting each other. I mean, China invaded Japan on multiple occasions.
Japan invaded Taiwan earlier than before the Chinese Taiwanese went to Taiwan. Yeah, Japan, and, like I said, South Korea, like, they created these things called what are they called, like pleasure girls or something like that. And, like, Jeannie, like, she got really into this and, like, started. But the
geishas?
It was no, it was not geishas. These were South Korean women that were forced to become prostitutes for the Japanese military people that were occupying. And this is, again, This is not World War II. This is predating World War II. Yes, everything did not start with World War II. The Japanese were doing, get pissed off at me all you want, Japanese. You guys, what you did. You did some fucked up shit.
But I mean, I don't think you can just pin it strictly on them. They've been fucking with each other. I mean, because, Cambodia and fucking Laos, and I know that they were different things back then. And
Hmong inside of Laos and stuff.
And the Vietnamese and then the Hmong on the Vietnamese side. I mean, there's a lot of people that got fucked with. So the Asian thing, again, confused me.
It isn't. No, you're right. It's odd that they're so comfortable with, because I know you're right also, that there are aspects of the history that they are They're not settled. They're not undone. The Vietnamese like were at war with China on and off for 2,000 years. You know, I mean that's why the Vietnamese are so fucking like strategically intelligent as a society. Like sometimes it blows my fucking mind. Like I know, and I've interacted. You know, I mean in the poker world and whatnot. There's some smart motherfuckers, dude. Well, I'm not going to say that. We'll leave that for another day. So another good history one, though, I think is of course Malcolm X. You know, that's he's like I've read the autobiography several times. There's no doubt that what's his name, the little guy, Spike Lee. He did the little guy. He did a great job. I mean, he didn't deviate too far. And Spike Lee. I mean. Malcolm X is probably one of my favorite historical figures from that time period. Everybody talks about violence as if violence is inherently a bad thing when it comes to something like that. But part of what I liked about the way that it was portrayed was that you can't really understand Martin Luther King without, Martin Luther King functioned down there with the SCLC in a certain way. Malcolm X functioned out of Harlem in a different way, just like Fred Hampton, functioned out of Chicago in a different way, and Bobby Seals and Huey Newton functioned out of San Francisco a different way.
Right, but it wasn't just because you're talking about what did they call themselves, SNCC, right?
SNCC. Well, SNCC they worked with that, but they split off from SCLC.
Right.
Stokely Carmichael was I think the head of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
And then
and he had to leave the U.S. He had to go to Africa because he got so fucking they thought he was going to be the one that was going to follow Fred Hampton after they killed Fred.
Well, either way, I mean that's why they both got killed.
Yeah.
I mean.
Oh, actually, they said Malcolm X. They said they thought that Stokely Carmichael was going to be Malcolm X #2, so he had to flee and he went to Africa. So. Yeah, and then he was the SNCC guy, and he's the one who came up with the Black Power term. Yeah, I like that history. I don't watch a lot of those movies. I've never seen Selma. I just because. I don't know, because I read enough about the history.
I've never seen. I saw like Mississippi Burning, which was a fucked up movie. It tears me up inside to think that the South is that fucked up, and I know that, and they were depicting 60s South, right? 60s Mississippi. Mm. It wasn't that fucking different when I went down there in the 90s and early 2000s. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, like Jackson, where that guy's the mayor, that I talked about. They haven't fucking resolved their water issues. I mean,
well, no, I'm talking about the fucking racism thing.
But the race that's tied to it, though. What they're doing with that.
Yeah, I thought it was just poor people, but whatever. I mean, I know that when I was in Jackson, Mississippi, that was when. I'm in a car with 3 black guys, and I'm drunk, and I'm fucking hooting and hollering, because I do that when I get drunk, and they're like, shut up, and I was like, fuck you, woo, and they're like, no, calm down, and I was like, why, we're not doing anything wrong, and they were like, yeah, we're black, and you're white, and I was like, yeah, and they said, well, if a cop pulls us over, we'll get our ass kicked, because they'll make up some shit that we kidnapped you. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
They're not. No.
No, and that was in like 2004.
Yeah, we suck. We don't really grow. So Judas and the Black Messiah, though, that was about Fred Hampton, and that was another.
That was a good movie.
Uh-huh.
That was a good movie.
You saw that one as well. Yeah. I like that. That was fucked up, man. Makes you sad.
So I know that most of yours are all fucking serious and shit, but I gotta tell you,
I like a non-serious one. Give me a non-serious one.
The Corsican Brothers, dude.
What the fuck, dude? What the fuck, dude? What does that have to do with history? Did they change history and were they?
It was the French Revolution.
Dude,
you can eat cake.
I never watched the Corsican Brothers. I never saw that movie.
They fought the fucking Marquis de Sade, dude.
Yeah, but that was fucking those 2 stoners. What's their name? Cheech and Chong. Yeah. I can't fucking watch Cheech and Chong. I mean, like I could watch Cheech and Chong when I was smoking weed, watching Up and Smoke. When he says, "Oh, here, eat this," he's like, "Oh my God, don't eat that, man. That's the most acid I've ever seen anybody eat in my life." Like that I can do Cheech and Chong. I can't do historical Cheech and Chong.
Well, most people probably don't even realize that it was fucking historical.
Well, I mean, you just totally illuminated that to me. I had no fucking idea, dude.
Yeah.
The French Revolution. So who were they? Were they like with Danton and Robespierre?
No, it was just, I mean, they were fucking Cheech and Chong. It was just stupid accidental shit. But
were they smoking weed when they were wandering around?
No, and that's why. So it's not your typical Cheech and Chong movie.
I
it's
might
not.
Actually watch it now. Now that I've heard you say that.
It was fucking funny as shit, dude. They're twins.
They don't look like twins.
No. But they figured out when they were really young that if you hit one of them, the other one felt the pain. And so, like, they have fucking Cheech on a fucking torture wheel, and the Marquis de Sade is fucking lighting his feet on fire and shit, and he's just like, oh, I'm so tired. I wish you'd bring me a snack. And his brother's like in another fucking house or another room or whatever, and he's dancing around. And these girls are like, ooh, he can really dance. It was fucking stupid, but it was funny. And it was historical.
All right. But then what was changing? I mean, where was the fuck you to power? I guess if you've got two idiots that are running around.
The whole French Revolution part. And the torturing people for some fucking masochist, sadomasochist even.
What was their function? Did they have a social function, or were they just there?
No, they ended up breaking a bunch of the revolutionaries out of jail. And that's how they ended up taking, what the fuck is the mansion called? Maison de fucking bullshit.
Versailles.
Yeah. Okay, so they took that.
Versailles big, motherfucker. It's not.
Oh, it's a huge palace. Yeah. So Chong ended up breaking them out. I don't know. It's been a few years since I've seen it.
Did they have a scene where somebody said, did Marie Antoinette say, let them eat cake, or did something happen like that?
I'm pretty sure.
Did they pop a retard's head off? I mean, that was the king?
I don't know.
That was probably not the preferred nomenclature, dude.
No, but I think they did end up beheading him at the end. But it's been a long time since I've seen it. I was just trying to not make it so that it was all fucking serious all the time,
that
dude.
Was funny. You did a good job. That was funny. All serious, all the time. So let's cross over from history, and there's some other good history ones that we didn't cover. You know, I mean, I didn't like Salt. I got to do this one just real quick. Salt of the Earth. Herbert Biberman was the director of that. He was one of the Hollywood 10 that got the guys that got thrown in jail, labeled as socialists.
Oh,
Salt of the Earth was a story about miners that went on strike. The people that owned the mine bought a bunch of hooligans, in the area and tried to commit acts of violence against them. Rosario Vueltas, I think that was the name of the main female lead. She was awesome in the film. I haven't seen it for a long time, but that was a good one. That was, they spent a bunch of time in jail for being socialists and being filmmakers. I mean, when everybody got blacklisted and all that stuff.
So is the movie Salt of the Earth about the mines or about
Herbert Biberman was the director, but he did it as a response, because I think he actually did it after he got out of jail as a fuck you to the
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure, because I mean, either way it could be a fuck you to the institution, but I mean, because we talked about scabs and the guys that show up with fucking chains and bricks and guns and whatever.
That's what happened in the movie.
Breaking kneecaps, killing people, running people over.
They're strike breakers. I mean, that's what their job was.
Yeah. So, okay, so now you want to jump to fiction or no?
Let's go to fiction. Let's see what good fiction ones you have.
Well, so obviously, and so a couple of mine, more than a couple probably, are based on books. So the first one I can think of is Robin Hood. And then the second one, which is my fucking favorite book in probably the whole wide world, is 1984.
Yeah.
And the movie was not that great. But then, they were dealing with some shit that we don't deal with now, like they didn't have the tech stuff that we do.
Maybe somebody needs to do a new 1984 then.
Could be, because it was not the greatest movie ever.
It was very gray, like if I remember watching it. It was very grainy, like the film was.
Yeah, but I never could figure out if that was done on purpose or not because of the fact that it was supposed to be so dark.
Yeah, it had that sort of like Soviet kind of like.
And in the book they talk about, it almost, you can picture like this soot-covered shitty gray city, except for when he goes to bang the girl and then there's trees in the red sash, right?
Yes.
But otherwise everything's gray and shitty, and there's tubes to, give you your task for the moment and whatever. So 1984 is a big fuck you book, even though he didn't win.
No. Well, that's why I actually, when I was writing them down, because I wrote them down as like ones that were rooted in the concept of social change, and I also wrote down ones that foreclosed on the possibility of social change, and I put two films under that. That's 1984 in Brazil, and Brazil was just sort of like I can't remember who the fuck directed that. Terry Gilliam. That was his sort of like 1980s version of 1984. I think it all goes on in a guy's head. And at the end, he's in a room that's like room 101, and they're torturing him. And the last scene is of him fucking dying, after being tortured to death to try to get information from him. So, which is, not like room 101, not,
just sitting under the chestnut tree at the end, dude.
He lived, right? And
he lived. Yeah, he was a fucking brain dead whack job.
Exactly.
Sitting. Well, I guess in the chestnut tree.
Wasn't he sitting in
he was in the restaurant, the bar, under the chestnut tree.
Okay. It's been a long time since I watched 1984.
Well, I don't know. I'm basing it off the book.
But if we're going to talk about 1984, you got to talk about V for Vendetta.
Well, and I was going to, because that is probably my favorite fuck you movie, even though I was going to mention the Matrices, which are also based on the fucking Wachowski siblings, or made by the Wachowski siblings.
That's very politically correct of you. That's nice.
Well, that's what they call them now. They're Lana and Laura
sisters,
instead of Andy and Larry.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. You just dead name them. That's very bad.
Well,
back to the Matrices, yes.
Yeah. So, but as much as I like the Matrix and both sequels, V for Vendetta is way, way better.
I have a real problem with V for Vendetta. I like the idea of it, and I like the fact that they use John Hurt as the guy who's Winston in 1984 is the person who's the tyrant, the head tyrant honcho. But like my buddy Slavoj Žižek, he always says, I would sell my mother into slavery. That's what he'd always say. Into sex slavery, I think actually is what he uses. I would sell my mother into sex slavery if they would make a movie, a sequel. V for Vendetta 2, the day after, because it's really easy to show the revolutionary moment, the cathartic moment, the moment where you overthrow the system. But the problem is the next day, the trains have to run.
Well, yeah, and it's like we discussed, what happened at the end of slavery and all of that stuff. Like, these people are free now, but what the fuck are you gonna do? But the reason that I really liked it is because it took, I mentioned all that shit about the RICO predicates and who is liable in the last episode. I was like, okay, the attorneys, doctors, pharmaceutical. So he attacked the pharmaceutical companies, he attacked the doctor, he attacked the military, he attacked the administration. So he really got, if you want, the five fingers of the fist.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why I appreciated it more than anything.
Because
and then
of the way that he spread out his targeting, you suggest. So, like, he sees the power functioning in this way, and he hits all of the ways in which the power reproduces.
Well, and a lot of people will say, well, he hit those people because of revenge. But I think if you look at it,
there was a
subtext,
clear strategic element to it. Yes.
And he got the media as well.
Yes,
so he got them all.
That's how we got what's her name, Natalie Portman was the media. Isn't that when he kidnapped her?
Yeah,
took her.
Yeah. She wasn't happy about that.
But he liberated her soul. I mean, and she was, the rain scene with their arms in the air. She was satisfied.
Well, and with regard to her and our character, I thought that the best part was, you truly changed me, and I didn't know how much until I was at the grocery store and I dropped my money and I noticed that the woman in front of me worked at the television station, and I was so worried that she was gonna recognize me, but she didn't. And that's because I'm different. And obviously you're gonna be different if you're fucking tortured for a year, kept in a dark cell. But she wasn't harboring any resentment at that point. She was appreciative of what he showed her and actually what he had done for her.
Yeah, well, dude, like, freedom is it's not a very common concept that people, like, honestly, I mean, I don't know that I think I experience it like in a clearer way than a lot of other people around me, but I don't know what absolute freedom looks like that, I mean,
no, I don't, none of us do.
No.
So, okay, at the end of the movie, right, infrastructure for the most part is still up. There's still trains, cars, gas is being delivered, all of that stuff. But the major components of the government are now gone. So there's no influence from the media, whatever. So if you had to say and just speculate what's going to happen day one after he fucking blows up Parliament, what happens? See, I, again, am the guy, and this is another one, Red Dawn is one of my favorites.
That was a fuck you to power.
Yeah. And the first one, not the second one.
Yeah, the second one was fucking goofy, dude. The first one is like our childhood too. I mean,
well, it was filmed here, but
still, we were like, I remember being 8 years old, or I guess it would have been like 9,
and being so scared of Russians.
Yeah. My head was fucked up.
They tried to scare us a lot.
But I mean, if you can get yourself even away from that and just do it in the abstract, look at it in the abstract. If you're in a situation like that and you got to go into the mountains and your kids, there is something that's kind of like, I don't want to do it, but there is something romantic about the thought of going and doing something like that when you're that age. So the day one thing though.
Yeah. So day one after they blow up Parliament, I mean, what happens? Honestly, with the way people are now, everybody probably splits off into their own fucking different gangs and everybody kills themselves and there's total anarchy until the fucking strongest tribal fucking leader takes over. And then at that point, you're just under the thumb of a fucking tyrant. What I would like to see happen after Parliament blows up is that everybody says, holy shit, we are now truly fucking free, and try to figure out a way to make things better.
But this is the problem with film. I mean, as much as I love film, and I love fucking film, like, these cathartic moments are, we either have like the moment where it breaks, or we have the moment where, like even at the end, like with Braveheart, to bring things, full circle for a moment, when he yells out freedom, as he's fucking dying, as they fucking took his entrails out, removed his cock and his balls from his body, like, but he still is dying. You know, like the catharsis is the only thing. Like we don't have a way to implant a concept in film where we have B for Vendetta 2, and nobody's gonna go fucking see B for Vendetta 2. Nobody wants to fucking deal with this.
I wouldn't go see it, but that's probably because it'd just be some trash that was.
But if V for Vendetta 2 was
another
about
revolution somewhere else,
what if it was about the day after, the practical component? Nobody's going to watch that. Nobody wants to know that you need to have a post office, you know? Nobody wants to know that you need to have guys that drive around fucking gravel and, you know, trucks so that you can fucking drive on the streets. Or
but see, that's what I think is great about it, is that the majority of the infrastructure was there. I mean, they didn't have to do that much. All they had to do was coordinate
everybody.
Well, kinda.
Or everybody had to remain coordinated, you know. And dude, people are not.
No.
I would have to kill some people then, because I know there would be some people that there would be power grabs, you know.
Right, and that's what I always say, is that I might not have a lot of guns, but I've got ammo. And that means I'll have more guns soon.
I don't know that I follow that logic. I understand it, but I don't know that I follow it. You're fucking funny. So, another good one about the fantasy world. Of course, and you knew I was going to bring. I love Bulworth, dude. Bulworth is my fucking. But I mean, that's another one where like you see the two people come together after all the weird things that go on. You know, she said her mom made breakfast for kids with Huey and Bobby. You know, he makes that comment to her while she's in the car. He says, kids your age or people your age, you know, he says, what, you know, she traps him, you know, and says, what did you mean when you said kids my age? And then she fucking
gave him a fucking dissertation.
Yeah, on fucking, yeah, like the destruction of the fucking
Black power structure.
Yeah, I mean, like her response is so fucking, I mean, if I was standing next to Halle Berry and I was him in that moment and she did that to me, I'd probably get a little wood. I got to tell you.
It's brilliant, dude. And if you've seen any of the fucking documentaries on the way the black middle class disappeared, she described it perfectly. Not just for fucking LA, but for all of the cities, because US, they shut down. They shut down 3 General Motors plants in fucking 1970.
Detroit was
in LA, I mean.
But Detroit as a whole. I mean, you look at why Detroit got so fucked up. It got fucked up because of that. You know, what people were surviving off of disappeared entirely. Totally, and nothing was put in its place to help them with anything. A real bad water system in Flint. You know, the people in Jackson should talk to the people in Flint and fucking get some dirty bombs. So I didn't see that.
But yeah, I loved Halle. Okay, so Bulworth 2, if there was a second one, because I fucking love that movie too, and everything Senator Bulworth said in that fucking movie was absolute truth.
How do you have it? He's fucking dead.
Right, that's my point, is that now that he's dead, but yet all of these people on the media, and he's started to make people listen to some degree.
The crackhead, then Halle Berry's family, and then so like there's a
well, no, but all of those media people started to listen to him, and what's her name? Lori, whatever. She was on Roseanne. She was the sister. She was in the van.
Oh, that's right.
Fucking
play back that crispy crab cakes one again.
Frodo Baggins was in there, yeah. And the dude from The Wire and Treme, which I know you've never seen either of those, but
I watched the first season of The Wire.
He was in the van too, and so they started to listen. And
that guy was on The Wire.
I thought you watched the first season.
I don't remember that guy.
Unless I'm thinking of the wrong guy, big fat black guy.
That's what I mean. The other one that's in the van with her.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of those guys started to listen, and then you know the media people and certain people at the parties, and definitely the strip club in downtown LA, they were listening. Whatever. So yeah, obviously.
What did they call him? Look who we got here. We got
George Harrison.
George Hamilton.
Hamilton.
George Hamilton.
Yeah, Harrison's a Beatle.
That just reminds me. So I tell you, when I was in Taiwan, this little fucking Taiwanese lady, she comes up to me and she starts speaking English, talking to me just like da 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 da. And I said, I'm not the person who you think I am. And she said, oh, I can never tell. You all look the same. George Hamilton.
So yeah, I know there's no Bulworth 2. There can't be. But I mean, if you've got a senator that is that, what do you want to say? Noticeable, people are paying attention to him. Yeah. Somebody that's on TV that much.
Yeah, super public figure. Yeah.
I mean, don't you get the attention of some of the population? And then, okay, so here's what is really going to happen in Bulworth 2 is that immediately after they have a funeral and then they discredit Bulworth and they shut the entire fucking thing down and they show you something else to forget about what Bulworth said. And that way nobody continues to repeat what it is he was saying. Yeah. That's what actually happens.
It's kind in Bulworth 2. It's kind of like what happened in the movie industry to Warren Beatty after he made it. Nobody ever gave him $1 again, or ever let him make a film again, or ever allowed him to speak publicly again at any major, not at the Golden Globes, not at the fucking Academy. I mean, the guy.
Dude, and that's a fucking shame, because that was a brilliant movie, and he was, I mean, what, 30 years?
He was older than that.
No. But I mean, 30-year career.
Yeah, dude. Because
by the time he made that movie,
Reds, he made a ton of really good fucking films, dude. I didn't ever see.
Because didn't he start with like Dustin Hoffman?
He started making movies in the 70s.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. He had a big career. Was he in All the President's Men? I can't remember if he was in that. So I don't know. What other movies that are not about the
only one that I was really going to mention, and again, this one, so there's 2 of them really, well, maybe 3, but so I was going to mention, since I mentioned 1984, I wanted to mention
Ishtar. He did with
Ishtar was fucking hilarious. That was a great movie, and that was kind of a fuck you too. But it was a confusing fuck you.
The Parallax View. That was a fucking weird movie too.
All
right. I'm gonna shut up
now. No. So Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. Yeah. So they did, I think, a shitty movie. Amazon did a fairly decent show. I think a lot of people were confused because I heard people saying that they were breaking the alpha betas and all of them down, and that isn't the way pack mentality works. And they weren't breaking them down into pack mentality. They were making some of them smarter and some of them dumber so that the dumb ones could shovel shit and the smart ones could help society go on.
Yes.
So the big fuck you part was when the guy discovered that he would prefer to be out in the outlands, the badlands, than he would to be back, taking, what's that shit?
Soma.
Yeah. Soma. That Dr. Cooper gave me that once.
You totally just outed him, dude. You're not supposed to out people like that.
Well, it's fucking legal, but it's horrible. It didn't do anything for me.
It made me tired. Made me fall asleep.
But they were taking Soma and these other drugs.
It was MDMA,
mind control type stuff.
Yeah, they'd all be fucking and getting stuff. Woo-hoo. Nobody had permanent relationships with anybody. I mean, if you're between the ages of 16 and 25, it sounds like a lot of fun,
Dude, the way that they fucking described that girl in the locker room with her fucking striped socks and her green shorts, that was fucking hot. Huxley's a bad motherfucker, I'll tell you. So that was one, because it was not a revolution in true sense of the revolution, except it was just a guy saying, "Fuck you, I'm out, I'm done."
When he fucking killed himself. I mean, he killed himself.
Yeah, because then
they put him in that weird area and he fucking hangs himself.
Yeah, I forgot about that because he ended up meeting his twin out in the Badlands.
So what's the second one then?
Well, the other one is Catch-22, and this one,
I've not read that, and I've not seen that, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's a brilliant fucking book. The movie,
what's his name?
Not so much. Heller.
Heller, okay, that's right.
Okay. It's awesome, and it talks about so much of government. The bureaucratics, and I know that that's not a word, but
that's bullshit. It can be a word there, yes. Because you're talking about machinery when you say
that. and how it can get so just fucking wrong. Like this one guy, this one soldier ends up being the clerk who basically, he's the guy in charge of acquiring things, right? And then he's in charge of dispersing those things to the different battalions or troops or whatever. Well, he starts pulling little shit aside, and he's starting to make more money because he's selling the stuff that he's pulling off the top, and he's skimming, and next thing you know, he's got this fucking corporation. And while he should be in jail, the government gives him a huge fucking contract and a bunch more money. And so his corporation just grows and grows and grows. And so
subsidized corporations.
Dude, it fully reminded me, because when I read it, it was just, I mean, it reminded me of our former Vice President Dick Cheney. I'll just say that. Because of,
don't ever go hunting with that motherfucker.
Or let him run the books.
I think you'd be, or maybe you should just put him in that position and then just come up behind him and give him an old Texas two-tap. You know?
He wasn't wearing an orange vest. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I just looked real quick because I was curious. Warren Beatty's been acting since 1956.
Yeah, he's an old motherfucker.
So by the time Bulworth came out, he had been doing it for almost 40 years.
He screened Reds for Ronald Reagan. He went to the Oval, like to the White House, and he screened it with him.
How did they like that?
Ronald Reagan loved it.
No, it was 42 years by the time Bulworth came out.
Ronald Reagan loved it. He said it's a great movie. You know, I mean, what's anybody gonna say? I mean, Ronald Reagan's the guy that they give fucking credit for bringing the wall down. You know, he's like, I can look at that shit and talk shit now because it's all over because of me, motherfuckers.
Right. I wonder if he showed him Ishtar. Because that was a different movie.
Did you see any of the Man in the High Castle stuff on Amazon?
Yeah. I saw the first season. I laid off because I watched the first episode of season 2. And then
it was so bad,
I was
dude.
off.
It was so bad. I love that book so much. Like, I had such high hopes for the show when they said they were going to do it. Because it's fucking brilliant fucking book. You know, like, I was, but that was one that could be a good fuck you to power. I mean, and ultimately I know that's what ends up happening. I mean, because they do sort of like codify their position against like the uber fucking fascists on one side and the fucking Japanese fascists on the other, you know. That was kind of a disappointment to me. But another one that's about it's about a real event, but it's really fiction, is the Battle of Algiers, which is when they were trying to, like, the native Algerians, the black Algerians were trying to get the fucking French out of there, it actually was a how to get the colonizers out. They showed at the beginning they used these certain tactics, and then they escalated the level of activity, and then violence and all that kind of stuff. And as time goes on, at the end, they perpetrated some pretty heavy duty stuff, but they did expel the French ultimately. And I think that in terms of a movie that was the way it was talking about colonialism and the way that it was sort of like being utilized as a how-to was pretty interesting. Pretty fucking cool movie. I had to watch it in a revolution and social change class in a different life.
I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing that entire, I don't know if you want to call it a civil war or not, because technically they were just colonizers, so I don't know if you can call it a civil war. I'm sure the French say it was a civil war.
Yeah.
But again, one man's terrorist.
Yeah. Good job bringing it back full circle there, buddy.
But I'm pretty sure that's why the stranger, his character in the stranger was just self-loathing to some degree.
You're talking about Camus?
Yeah. You haven't read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about literature or self-loathing. I just started talking. But I think because there was a lot of that where, he didn't recognize himself or any of the people around him where he was. So maybe not. I don't fucking know.
Shit happened.
Fuck. We are at an hour. I know.
Oh, wow. We went for seriously. We didn't talk about Charlie Wilson's War or Dave. Dave was a stupid movie that was about social change.
We're at 57 minutes now.
Dallas Buyer Club, The Trial of the Chicago 7. There's a lot of good movies out there about Do the Right Thing. Bamboozled. That was a happy movie.
You're a big fucking Spike Lee fan, huh?
No, I don't really. But I mean, I think that Do the Right Thing at the time it came out, I liked it. And Bamboozled took it to a different level. I enjoyed that. And dude, like Malcolm X is like, I mean, I think that he's one of the most interesting historical figures of the 20th century. I just think like not only because of what he like to go from being the criminal person that he was to the Nation of Islam person that he was to realizing that he was essentially a dead man walking, and to make that fucking right turn and saying, I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to take back all the shit that I said, but except for that, I'm going to say we can take help from white people, but we have to do this as black people because we feel so fucked up in our heads about who we are. We have to do some things for ourselves before we can really be in a positive relationship together, and he was fucking, and of course he was a misogynist.
It's no like doubt. The loving yourself before you can love anybody else.
Yes. Yeah. I just think like,
except
so it's more him.
A racial. Yeah. All the way across.
And dude, I don't like to do the race thing very much, unless you're going to talk about it in those really complicated ways. And I think that Spike Lee does a pretty fair job of doing that. So,
well, his production company is called 40 Acres and a Mule.
Yeah,
so I'm sure he really likes to talk about complex racial situations. So, on that note, that happy note, let's see. What else you got?
We still don't know what we're going to do on Friday. We'll figure it out in the next couple of days.
I got some ideas.
Throw them out.
No, I don't want to.
Okay,
I don't want to disappoint the listeners.
All right. Surprise.
All right, people. We'll see you on Friday. You can reach us on via email at shortbusdebateclub@yahoo.com.
720-334 roll.
The ride is over. Get off the bus. End of the line.
Hasta la vista.